developed for conventual Franciscans in 1480 by William Moore O'Callagh, Lord of Hymany. The chosen site was close to a 6th century foundation built by St. Cunniffe, from which Kilconnell gets its name. In 1534, Timothy Thomas was elected provincial in Kilconnell. This was a difficult time because of suppression of the monasteries by Henry VIII, although Kilconnell was never suppressed. On the night of the 20th of June 1648, Archbishop Rinuccini, who represented the Pope at the Confederation of Kilkenny, stayed in Kilconnell on his way from Kilkenny to Galway when he was returning to Rome.
Sancta Maria,
ora pro nobis,
Sancta Dei Genitrix,
ora pro nobis,
Sancta Virgo Virginum,
ora pro nobis,
Sancti Michael, Gabriel et Raphael,
ora te pro nobis,
omnes Sancti Angeli,
ora te pro nobis,
Sancte Abraham,
ora pro nobis,
Sancte Moses,
ora pro nobis,
Sancte Elia,
ora pro nobis,
Sancte Ioannis Baptista,
ora pro nobis,
Sancte Joseph,
ora pro nobis,
omnes Sancti Patriarchae et Prophetae.
At the time, Gregorian chant was the form of music used in choir. It is still in use in many places today, but not as widely as before Vatican II. You had two different kinds of monks, religious monks and lay monks. The lay monks worked and they also begged. They farmed and planted crops. They grew oats and wheat and vegetables. They drank wine that came from France via Galway. This would have been transported by river or canal. The religious monks slept near a church in dormitories that were better built and warmer. While monks ate their meals, one monk would read from the scriptures. Christy, Cunniffe, an archaeologist, came to visit us and told us all about the abbey.
Essential to look at the building materials, and all of us when people were building, unless they were installing prestige work such as doorways and windows, they generally used the native stone. So when you come in here to East Galway, anywhere in East Galway, you're going to find limestone.
A quarry was probably nearby. The most important person in the building of the abbey was the stonemason. He would have been like the architect. We know there was a master mason in the area in the 15th century because he left his mark. The name of one particular mason in East Galway was Johannes. This name is found in the ruin of Clontuskert and in two places on a window in Portumna.
A lot of window types. You have, as I said already, the arches. We'll talk about the arches. The tower. The tower is one of the important elements, if you like, in a Franciscan monastery. The Franciscan towers are regarded as slender towers. If you say you went down to Wexford and places like that and saw some of the other types of towers, where you have Cistercians and that, they'd be much fatter and shorter. They'd be more like the base of the tower there. But the Franciscan tower is what they call a slender tower. They're much narrower. And if I was driving through here, I'd look at that and say, that looks like Franciscan.
Oak was used for the roof and floors. Pine was used for scaffolding. They used pulleys and ropes to lift the stone and heavy timbers. They used sand, water, lime, mud, ox blood and the hair of an ox to bond the limestone. There is a granary in the abbey which suggests there is a mill nearby. There would have been a water source also nearby. This would have been a huge importance as it would have driven the mill, serviced the kitchen, supplied fish for the table and supplied water for the latrines as they were known in those days.
where the monks or the friars or any of these people lived is nearly always, well, generally, on the north side of the Franciscan. So we'll see all of their living quarters are on the north side of the building. Whereas if that was Augustinian or something else, it would be on the south. And then their churches, their ancillary churches, all of those rooms are associated with the church itself, are on the south side. So from the ground plan, we'll talk about that when we go in, but just it's set in place for us. Look at the landscape, look at the building. You have a Franciscan tower there. If I never knew the history of the site, as an archaeologist or somebody that would have a certain amount of expertise in architecture, you'd say that appears to be Franciscan.
There are many magnificent architectural features in the building. The beautifully decorated windows, the cloister arches.
Here itself, and then on top here we have this capital. Generally at the top, to terminate a pier or column, we have a capital. And from the top of the capital, we get what we call the springing of the arch. And this is a very definite Gothic arch, pointed arch. Very definite. From the 15th century, well really from the late 13th century onwards, we start getting the Gothic, but the true sharp Gothic that we get here in Ireland, you really see in the 15th century. That's a simple enough capital. That's a decorative capital there with a sort of moulding around the top of it. The other thing to look out for is the work that they did on it, how they actually finished the limestone. It was punched, a very fine punch. And every century has a different type of tool. We did look at the tower itself. What can we see in the tower?
The thing at the side.
Yeah, we're actually seeing the shape of the roof there. Those tiles.
That was added on, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it's possible that this was added after the tower, and that it was inserted into the actual tower itself there. In here, the court here, and I think that's the Franciscan type court as well, isn't it? But it's a continental, there's a continental style here. Now, some people have suggested that the link here could have been a link anywhere with Europe and that, and with France through the importation of wine and that. And wine would have been part of both the diet here, and of course wine would have been used here within the church as the blessed wine as well, as Eucharist through that. So wine would have been imported and kept here in these houses.
Are them things off along the...
These?
Yeah.
They're vine leaves. The vine leaf was typically used in the 15th century into the 16th century as an artistic motif. And the vine represents Christ. I am the true vine. So
The Abbey is now a national monument, maintained by the Office of Public Works. It is visited by many tourists every year. It is perhaps the most perfect of the Franciscan houses at present remaining to us in Ireland. It has a majesty and beauty all its own, and a deep religious calm.